Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our WhyTry webinar. Webinar today is actually presented by both WhyTry and the National Alternative Education Association. We're so grateful for our relationship with them. My name is Jason Johnson. I will be the moderator and the host today, and I'm really excited for the subject that we have and for the panelists that we have. Before I introduce both, just want to welcome everybody for showing up. Appreciate you being here. If you have not been on one of these before live, we do record them, but we like to run them live, and we do keep an open chat during the live session. So if you have questions on any of what we're discussing, feel free to throw any questions in the chat. One note on that. So we're scheduled to be together about an hour today. But one note on the chat. So we're on a webinar link, which means myself and my two panelists are the only ones with live cameras and live microphones. For the rest of you that are on here live with us, we can't see you and we can't hear you, but we will lean on the chat. So one thing that's helpful is if you can double check one of the settings in your chat just to make sure that other people can see your comments. The way you can test that is open up your chat tool where you would type a message. Right above where you type a message, it says to, and then there's a little drop down menu where you can select who you're sharing your message with. That should say to everyone. If it doesn't say to everyone, then not everybody can see your comments. If that says to hosts and panelists, we're the only ones that can see it. So if you're willing, adjust that to everyone. And then after you have made that adjustment, go ahead and share an emoji in the chat to let us know how you are enjoying your summer so far. Share an emoji that expresses how your summer is going so far. Throw it in the chat and I'll be able to do a quick check to make sure you've got your settings adjusted. The chat emojis, they make me smile every time, and I'm so sorry for those of you that are really hot. I'm guessing a few of those are from North Carolina, where we've already been told that it is quite steamy, quite humid there. And Natalie, FYI, Natalie, Cynthia, you're both set to host and panelists right now, so not everybody can see your comment. Just FYI. Let's see, Cells, Arizona, nice. Okay, well, good. Well, thank you for showing up. It really appreciate you showing up here during a lot of people. There is a heat wave coming through right now, the country, but appreciate you showing up. These June webinars, I'm always so impressed with the people that show up to participate in the content during June. June and July are those big recharge months for us in education, and so it means a lot to have you show up for the live version. And I'm really excited because I think we'll have something that a lot of you may be excited to share with your faculty and staff as you go back. So let me introduce the topic that we have, and then I'll introduce our panelists. As I mentioned, we are doing this one in conjunction with the National Alternative Education Association, incredible group that we've had a relationship with for a couple of years. They always get us just the best educators that come in with really great ideas and experiences, and today's no exception. Today we're going to be focusing on bringing learning to life, project-based learning, and career and technical education in action. And I'm really excited for it for a couple reasons. One, I think project-based learning is a really, really important and interesting topic. I think there's going to be a lot of really good ideas coming from this, and I'm excited to be able to platform this a little bit and let other people learn from some of the experts that we have. But I'm also excited because I've done about 90 of these, and I've only had on a couple of them people representing my home state, which I'm so excited to have today. Some absolute experts in the field. We've got Natalie Stromberg. Natalie's the business development coordinator at the Davis Catalyst Center in Utah, where she collaborates with industry partners to create hands-on, real-world learning experiences for students. She manages projects across a range of disciplines, including cybersecurity, web design, culinary arts, drones, audio, video production, construction management, and marketing. Got a background in alternative ed. Natalie has also taught English, ESL, senior seminar, business, entrepreneurship, led DECA programs, etc. Her work empowers students to take ownership of their learning and develop the skills they need to design their futures. Natalie also serves on the executive board of the National Alternative Education Association. Natalie, thank you so much for being here today. And then next we have Jeff Warren. Jeff is a CTE education specialist at the Utah State Board of Education, where he supports programs that connect students with career-ready experiences. Prior to his state role, Jeff spent 10 years in the classroom in Davis School District, pioneering profession-based learning and integrating industry certifications into his teachings. He holds multiple credentials, including Part 107 drone pilot certification and an education administrative certificate. He's presented at local and international education conferences, consulted on STEM initiatives with Texas Instruments, written grants for classroom support, really done it all, an expert in the field. Really grateful to have you on with us today as well, Jeff.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And well, I'll circle back to something in just a minute that is an interesting point, but I'll introduce myself. My name's Jason Johnson. I'm the director of training, former school psychologist, and now director of training for the WhyTry organization. I spent my education career in the same state that Jeff and Natalie are in Utah, where I worked at Alpine School District, and so grateful to be on with you today. Now, Jeff, is your current location a secret, or is this a thing we're talking about?
Oh yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. So while I am from Utah, working in Utah, teaching Utah, I'm physically in Atlanta right now, where it is also extremely warm and humid. The National Skills USA Championship is happening, and our school sent 6 students across 3 different programs in the drone program, the 3D animation program, and the game design program. And then we have another couple students from our district here for audio production. And so I'm here supporting 8 students as an advisor to help them across their competing all week.
Jeff just being an absolute expert in the field and live in what we're talking about is there at competition in Atlanta, and hope it's going well. Absolutely cheering on you and your students there. That's awesome of you to make time for us. Let's jump right into it. I'm wondering if you could just maybe introduce in a little more detail what your current roles are, and maybe share a little bit about this Catalyst Center that has been mentioned, because I think that's kind of the central connection hub for where some of this discussion is going to go through. Let's maybe start with Natalie. Tell us a little bit more about your current role, what the Catalyst Center is, and then I'll throw to you, Jeff, to share a little bit more.
Perfect. So, and sorry, I glitched there for a second, but I'm back. So we talk a lot about project-based learning, but you kind of back it up and you think, okay, there's problem-based learning, there's project-based learning, and we do profession-based learning here at our center. So, and I know you're like, what does that mean? So profession-based learning is when we integrate what we're teaching here with industry partners. And so then our students are actually doing a real world project for an industry partner. So they are doing project-based learning, but it is with a community or industry partner. And so that's kind of what we have here. And I know people will say, oh, that doesn't work for us. How does that work? But all of our pathways are really deeply embedded into CTE. And so we have in our building right now, we have 14 different pathways. And I know you kind of hit on some of those. And we have entrepreneurship. Well, and I have a slide, maybe I'll pop it up there. Would that be okay?
Yeah, please.
And then can you see that one?
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, so these are our pathways, and you can kind of see, and these are our real students in those pathways. And you can see that we have everything from business and marketing. We do have teaching as a profession because we need to grow our own as well. But we have computer programming, and like Jeff said, we have those computer kids working right now. They're in Atlanta competing. We do have a construction management. Our students build tiny homes. We have culinary program here where we do baking and pastry as well as Pro Start. Our kids also compete in that. Jeff is our awesome drones teacher. Well, he's leaving me, but we do have that where our kids get their Part 107 commercial drone pilot's license as well. And then we have the media production. So we have audio, video, graphic design. We do have a medical assisting and pharmacy tech here in our building, as well as a physical therapy and an aviation where our students can get their ground school for their private pilot's license. I know that's a lot, and people are like, I cannot do that. I can't have the whole thing that you have because we have this whole center here. And the way that it works very specifically is we are a magnet school. So we magnet from the 9 comprehensive high schools in Davis School District. So they go to their home high school for math, English, science, all of that. Then they come to us for these specific programs. And then they come to us for a block period. So they come for 2 periods of their 8-period schedule. And so they're here in our building for about 2.5 hours. And then the other thing that we really like to talk about is these are our core values. And so these are the things that we focus on, and all of our decisions here in the building go through these core values. So you can see these profession-based learning, what I talked about. So again, we are different. Everybody can do project-based learning, and a lot of people can do profession-based learning, but that big key component is having industry partners or community partners that you're going to work with.
That's fantastic, and I know we're going to explore that here in just a little bit. Looks like Natalie may have froze. Jeff, do you want to talk a little bit about what your role has been with Catalyst and what your area of focus has been?
We do have the entrepreneurial mindset. We want.
Oh, there you go. Natalie,
Yeah.
you froze just momentarily, but
I know.
got you back.
I don't know. They're working on the building, and I'm worried that like our internet's bad. I'm like, dang it, Jeff will have to save.
No, no worries, no stress. You gave a really nice overview of that Catalyst building. We caught how it's a magnet program, and I think you gave a good overview of how students get there and how they split time between their home schools and the Catalyst program there in your district. Jeff, anything you want to add? Maybe talk a little bit about what your area of focus has been, and if either of you have any insight on kind of what students you serve, how students get into that program, et cetera.
Sure. So I think one of the things that was on that slide that was specific to why we were looking at that was that it mentioned the CAPS experience. And CAPS is an acronym for the Center for Advanced Professional Studies, of which the Catalyst Center is part of that national network. And you don't have to be part of that national network to really engage students in those types of experiences. What it would boil down to in the most layman's terms would be having those durable skills embedded into all of the curriculum that students interact with. And when I say durable skills, that's kind of the newest catchphrase, at least from the Utah State Board of Education, but I imagine it's happening in a lot of other places too. They're soft skills, they're professional skills, they're the things that help students not just with their classwork, but they stay with them and can help them throughout their entire life, their entire careers. And so my role when I started at the Catalyst, when we opened the building 4 years ago, was to help make sure that students could be supported in the industry tests and goals towards either a post-secondary experience or directly in insertion into industry, based on with the curriculum that I was teaching, but also to make sure that the way I was teaching it helped support those core values, that students were able to interact with drone curriculum in particular, because that was the area I was teaching, in a way to experience some entrepreneurship, and could they take some ownership for what they were doing, what they were learning, but also what they wanted to do with it moving forward. Would they be able to communicate effectively? Would they be able to have some self-actualization and discovery so that they would know, is this something that they want to do? And it's fine if they didn't, because this was kind of their chance to say, oh, I tried this and it seemed really interesting at the time, but I'm not going to waste a bunch of college money working on it when there was maybe a piece of it that was interesting, but not the whole thing, and I want to explore some other avenues. And so as a teacher, my biggest role was to kind of facilitate projects that allowed them to practice those durable skills, but then to also have those moments of exploration so that they could have a better picture for what their life would be like in the future.
Incredible. I love it. Um, could either of you maybe just speak a little bit to, in case people are curious, how do students get involved in this program? How do you attract students? What type of students are you looking for? How does it happen?
So we do have an application process. So students need to have taken some prereqs to come into our school. We do this for two reasons. One, because we want to kind of have that level set that kids have kind of a basic understanding entering it. But also because we want to fill our CTE programs in our regular high schools as well. So specifically, if they are coming into our video program, they have need to have taken digital media at their home high school or like a photography class at their home high school. So they kind of have that basic understanding, and then this is more of a capstone experience. We do have a few programs specifically, like our construction management is not offered in any high schools in our district. So this is kind of that centralized place as well, but they still do have to apply to come here. One thing that we really focus on though is it's not based on their GPA. So they don't have to have like a 4.0 to come to the school. They just have to have good attendance and then those prereq classes. Because we know that some of our students are kids that are going to come here and this is what they want to do, right? So they might not love math and science, but they really do love this core content or this area. And so they apply, they have those prereqs, and then they've been attending school are kind of our key components. And then kids can come here. One thing I say this all the time, I'm like, if you come here and you like this program, awesome. If you come here and you don't like this program, awesome. Because what that means is that you've learned and you've experienced some things, and so you're happy that you're going to grow. You know, you're not going to go to college and spend all this money and then be like, I don't want to do that. So that's kind of the Jeff. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and I was just going to point out that as for recruiting, we started off doing some heavy recruiting in the high schools. I would go to some of the prerequisite classes or even just related classes, take 5 minutes and do a short presentation for students just to let them know about the opportunities that were there. Because one of the biggest things that was holding students back from applying wasn't that they wouldn't be accepted. It was that because they didn't know that there was an option for them. So we had meetings with counselors, we had meetings with administrators throughout the district. Again, Natalie mentioned we have 9 comprehensive high schools in the school district, and then we were trying to feed from all of those into this into this magnet center. We have over 80,000 students in our district, and so that's a lot of people, a lot of households that need to be interacted with and to get the word out. But after the first year of that, and students were in the program and then they were going back to their home high schools, the word of mouth became the really biggest thing. Is that the students that liked it told all their friends about it, and the students that didn't like it also told all their friends about it, and hopefully there weren't very many of them. But our enrollment has been growing every single year. We're basically busting at the seams with some portables on the side of the building, and trying to get some funding for a second building so that we can have our program offerings a little bit more robust and have the space to accommodate that. But the other piece of it too is that we've also done some integration with the junior highs. The career and college awareness courses, the exploring technology courses, some of those programs that students have in the junior high level, they come on tours, and we'll have tours come through our building with junior high students, experiences in summer camps, so that they can come in and get just a small taste of, hey, when you're in high school, these are some of the programs and offerings that are available. And then they can preview that and kind of start to make a plan for their future at that age too.
I love it. I think it's such a great success story. So my role as the director of training with WhyTry, get to go throughout the country and work with educators and mental health professionals. We do a lot in the world of Gear Up and CTE. And there's so many people that are trying to like solve this challenge that you've been working on. And I'm so impressed that you've found such an effective model that seems to be on a really good trajectory. I'm sure you've had bumps along the way and probably learned a lot. But there's so many people throughout the country that are trying to find this solution that you've got a really good track on. Let's jump right into the project-based learning of it that I think a lot of people are here to get more insight into, and I know I'm really excited to dig into a little bit more. how do you define project-based learning? Like, how would you describe it to somebody, and how does it naturally connect with the idea of CTE that a lot of schools have committed to and are still trying to figure out the best route for that? Let's maybe go Natalie first, and then Jeff.
So project-based learning is really that you have a project that you're centered on, right? And the kids are all part of it, working in a group, building it up. And this looks different in every school, right? You could have everything from pretending to build, a lemonade stand and creating that and actual producting it, to into in sports marketing where you have a pretend baseball team and you're creating a plan for it. What we do differently here is that profession-based learning, and it's a real project. So our students really are actually creating a marketing plan. Here in Utah, we have a local theme park, and our students actually created a marketing plan for that, for a funnel cake festival. And our culinary students actually created the new recipes for the funnel cakes. Our marketing kids did the marketing for it, and then through the month of April, they went down and sold all these different funnel cakes. But it was beneficial to our students because it was a real project, and it was beneficial to the theme park because they had this opportunity to, get new ideas, get new flavors, get new things. So it's beneficial. It's a win-win. We do this with every one of our departments. So for example, our construction management students are actually building tiny homes for another local community member here, which is the other side village. It's there for it's a homeless encampment. And so they're building true tiny homes for people. So everything they're doing is real world. And so the students feel it's not just, hey, write this paper, and then when it's done, it goes in the garbage. It's like, hey, I created an actual logo for a business in my community, and now I see that on their website. And our students make websites. So everything is real. And I know people are like, well, I can't do that. You don't have to do it like we do it. There's lots of options for doing it and getting started and just getting your feet wet in that. I just got back from a conference, and it's literally you just do it, kind of step into it and start to build. And I really think that what's fun about it is real. So the kids see the relevance. You don't have to try and get like, hey, we're going to learn math. No, they understand that they have to have the relevance right there embedded in that.
Right. And the like project-based learning can be scary because it's messy. It's there's a lot going on. Not everybody's always working at the same pace. But it fundamentally isn't very different from like backwards design when you're designing some lesson curriculum in like a science classroom. When I was teaching physics, and I would know that I needed this overarching picture for students to learn about conservation of energy, like that's equivalent to the project that a student would do in my drone classroom. But instead of having them have some lecture time, a handful of worksheets, a lab with some cars going down hills or springs or pendulums or whatever, like those types of labs, worksheets, a quiz, and a test at the end are all wrapped into this one project. And so I would have, for an example, in my drone classroom would be a repair project where a student is given, hey, here's a drone that has some problem with it, and here's contact information for the owner of the drone. Whether the owner's me or somebody outside the building is irrelevant, because through that whole process, they get to go through the diagnosis, they get to go through the problem solving steps, they have to contact the client, an initial template for reach out to the client, say these things, introduce yourself, maintain communication with them. So if the project goes more than a week, send them a follow-up email to let them know how it's going, let them know you're still working on it, let them know when it's done, get approval for the actual repair that you're going to do. So there's a couple touch points, kind of like a workflow of what they're doing throughout the project, but they're practicing communication skills. They're practicing maybe the soldering and the diagnostics and the firmware updates, and checking for visual damage and structural repair, things that they have to know. They're all different performance skills that they have to have in that class, but they're all just wrapped into one piece. So instead of wrapping everything into one central big idea and then backwards designing, that's the same thing we do with the project. Is we have a project that has all the different performance skills inside, and then it just all gets assessed as they complete it.
That's amazing. I love the relevance piece. It's one of the things, we specialize in WhyTry around the skills of resilience. Like, how do we respond to a challenge, adversity? How do we teach somebody to not give up, become a good problem solver, and continue to put effort into things. And I think the project based, the relevance project based is such a vital step, even in addressing, you know, those soft skills, which resilience a lot of times kind of falls within, but it feels so complementary to those durable skills that you described and the professional skills. Let's kind of explore a little bit further. I'm wondering if you could maybe talk about what this looks like in practice, like on the day to day at Catalyst. Like, what does a typical day look like for your students there? What are they doing, engaging in, building? How do you really put the project based learning model into practice there? Let's maybe start with Jeff on this one, and then throw over to Natalie.
Okay. And I started to allude to it too, is that I've got a handful of projects that are kind of my go-tos as those overarching things that I know are going to encompass specific strands and standards objectives that the students need to have. But from a teacher standpoint, what it looks like is at the start of a project, sometimes there's some front loading that has to be done, some core knowledge, a little bit of direct instruction or discovery that needs to happen for them to engage in the project. But then once they start to engage, once I've given them the information, even if it's like, okay, we need to do a half hour of lecture as part of the preview for this, then they start digging into the project, and they have a workflow. We've been running a Scrum Light, which is a project management technique, very common in the software industry. It can be used for anything, but it's also roughly equivalent to if you Kanban, or if you have any kind of a workflow planning process that just sorts, these are the tasks that need to be done, this is their progress state, and then this is their completion and the workflow that happens across that. So they're learning that as part of their durable skill set too, is some of their time management and their ability to prioritize tasks. But then I do a lot of just check-ins with students on a daily basis, where I'll stop into a student group or individual students, depending on how they're working, and see where they are, what they're working on, what they're planning to do next, make sure that they don't have any issues or hangups that they need some extra support with. And then I move on. And one of the other really nice things about these last year or two is that I've had repeat students, because it's really easy for a student to come into a project-based learning classroom and take the course again and just get more complex projects, have increased rigor, but then also to act as a student mentor for other students who are starting to see some of the other basic problems and processes that they had in a previous year. And then so they're able to support and enrich their learning through that experience as well.
Amazing. How about you, Natalie?
So my role is a little bit different because I'm not in the classroom, I'm the coordinator, but I'm going to share one more time for you. So this is something that I do. Oh, maybe, there we go. This is a client intake form, because we do have, oh, hopefully I didn't die. Did I die?
Nope, you're there.
Okay. We do have clients from the community. And so our clients, you can see that this is just that we have the company name, their point of contact, and then we're asking for their mission and their description, and then what they want from our students. So this is really clear that we want them, you know, like, do they want a website built? Do they want a graphic design? Do they want a flyer? We have clothing design. We have missions for, you know, like a real estate agent, if he wants a drone mission flown. So this is that starting piece, so that's how the client gets into the building. And then I'll share this with our teachers and our students. And then they will work on, I'm just moving back, sorry. Then they will work on kind of a project overview. And so the students have to take that information, and then they are the project managers. So we are more facilitators. And like Jeff was talking about, this looks different in every classroom, but however you want that project to flow. But they are, again, doing real work. And so they have to understand that there's not like a due date, but there is time when the teacher or the client is going to want those deliverables. And then this is something there's lots of iterations of this, but if this is something anybody wants shared, I could. This is just a playbook. So this is just a business.
Oh, I think she froze.
See,
so yeah,
go
for
ahead, Jeff.
This project's playbook, yeah, is kind of what the it's kind of that overview for the students, for them to kind of see
Model
what they're
Canvas
doing.
and my marketing teachers out there. But this is just, I guess.
We
I'm so
lost you
sorry.
momentarily, Natalie, but Jeff filled in and was I think he actually completed whatever sentence you started perfectly.
Yay. I'm so happy. I'm so sorry. Like I think that they are working on I have no idea what's wrong.
Yeah, no worries.
But yeah, so this is just kind of, and I'm glad to share any of this stuff with anybody who's kind of just getting started as well.
We
Yeah,
will
there's at least one person in the chat that did ask for those resources to be shared.
yeah, we're gonna put up contact information at the end. I anticipated a lot of people being interested in some of the resources. And then if you have, live links, drive links, or whatever, you're welcome to throw those in the chat as well, Natalie. No pressure one way or the other.
So, and really one of the other shifts in mindset for a teacher for these project-based sessions for students is that we become more of just a facilitator, work a little bit more in the background instead of having to, hold the kids' attention by the reins at the front of the classroom. Is that the project holds their attention, and then we just kind of steer them towards the outcomes that we're hoping for.
I think it's such a smart model. I start every one of my trainings. I've trained in all 50 states. I start every one of my trainings by just exploring, like, tell me, what are your biggest student challenges right now? We're talking about resilience, but one of the common responses I get are things like time management, task completion, like these things that we know are vital in the daily life. And I love how the project based model really takes those all into account, because it requires time management and it requires learning, all these real world skills that sometimes there's a little bit of a whiplash experience going from a very safe, like, classroom model, which is important, but then going out into the real world and trying to figure out how to apply some of these. I think it's such a smart model.
Well, and to kind of play off that a little bit too, is that when I was teaching science, because I taught physics and astronomy before I really dug into the CTE and drone and robotics world, was I would have students have to do equations and math as part of their science experience. And more than once, every single year, I had students say, "Why am I doing math? This isn't a math class, this is a science class." And in CTE, in project-based learning, that synthesis of the cross-curricular interactions of using math, using critical thinking, using their English skills to write an email or do a presentation in front of a panel of engineers or whatever it is that they're doing as part of their project. Those various skill sets from all their different subjects coming together, it makes sense. And I never had a student ask, well, why do I have to write a paper if this isn't an English class? Because it made sense in the context. And so that's also been great. Including, I had a parent just this week reach out to me and say, "Hey, my student loved your class so much. Thank you so much for being their teacher. I just wish that I could get them to engage in their other classes the same way they did in yours, because they really liked being able to do the projects, and they liked being able to interact with not just inside the classroom, and it's really made a difference in how they've approached school." And so I think that's another thing too, is that it kind of opens up the mindset for the students, that it's not just, I'm sitting in a classroom and I have to learn from this boring person. No offense to anybody who's actually boring out there, but that they're your interactions with the students, it becomes more about what they're trying to learn and not about what you're trying to teach them.
And it kind of eliminates that classic statement that we always get of, when am I going to use this? When am I ever going to have to use this in life? Because you're using real life examples. There's not even the point to the question, because you're combining with, in many cases, external projects that are necessary. And then I hear you using language, like the Scrum model, or I see you have written down, like, participating in a Slack. And these are real world tools that are used when they go out into the business world, that in many cases, we learn basic problem solving in school, but then you almost have to learn a whole new business language to enter that world post secondary, and you're integrating that in. I just think it's so smart.
Well, and we had to, because when we started this, we didn't want to just start with our own ideas. We wanted to be informed by industry. We wanted to be informed by the people that would be hopefully hiring these students when they left our programs. And so advisory boards have been a key role in how we've shaped and taken the direction of our programs. And so talking with people in local industry, businesses, and hiring agents to say, what are you looking for from a student? What do you wish you could see? What are you seeing? What types of skills and things are important? And that has helped us with a lot of the profession-based learning that we've been looking at. But one of the other things that was a very common theme was we can teach some of the technical skills as on-the-job training, but if somebody comes in to be hired and they've got a bad resume, then we might not look at them. If they come in and they can't talk to us, meet us in the eye, they don't have good interpersonal skills, then it's hard for us to hire them, because we want them to be able to work as part of a team. And all the on-the-job training for the day-to-day specifics, we can teach those things to them. They don't have to know those coming out of high school, but they should be able to do some of these other basic durable skills that make them more hireable right off the bat.
Love it. Jeff, oh yeah, go ahead, Natalie.
Well, no, I was just gonna say a lot of people are probably on here going, I can't do this because I don't have all these industry partners. I don't have all these things. I don't have like somebody who's going to find these connections for me. So one of the things I really like to talk about is you can do this, and you can start with one industry partner, right? If you have a classroom, start with one, and then you can ask for a project. We purposely don't ask for the number one project on an industry partners list. We do not want number one. You have employees for that. We can do number 8 on your list, right? That you have and you need help with, and you need new blood on it, right? And so ask for that, and then ask for one project, have them come in and pitch to your class or however you want to do it. And then everybody in the class does that same project, and now they're competing against each other, and then they can provide that project back to the industry partner. So for example, and this is really interesting, but we have a mortuary that's close to us, right? And so our students did a marketing campaign for this mortuary, right? Totally out of the box. He came in and asked, and he pitched it to the kids. The kids came up, there were 6 different groups. They came up with a good marketing strategy. They had to pitch it to the actual client and to each other. And then it was a real project. The number one pitch won, right? But they got to go out and then do part of it. But then there were really good elements in all of those projects that the industry partner actually used as well. So their stuff still got used, and it was only one partner. So there's lots of ways to do it without being overwhelmed. And then once you start with one, that industry partner will also talk and go back and tell their friends, hey, this school is here, you can start to do it. And our growth has been really organic, because it's like people see what we're doing and they want to be involved. You have industry partners in the parents and the families of the kids that are in your building. Talk to them in your class. Number one, just get them in there. And then there's like a tiered approach to getting people in your building as well. Invite them in to see what you're doing, have them talk to you, go on field trips, and then start your projects.
Really smart, really nice lead in to where I want to go, because I am curious what you would advise. Sometimes we get far enough down a road, we start to take for granted like where we're at. And, I think you both speak very almost, I hesitate to use the word because I don't want to cheapen the work that you've done, but I think you've done it long enough that you're able to speak just very casually. Like, this is just a matter of business. This is what we do. This is how we do it. And I know we have people on here that are likely feeling very overwhelmed or just uncertain. If you can think back to like your beginnings, what advice would you give to somebody that's starting at ground zero, that hasn't necessarily made any of those community connections yet? Like, where do you start? What should the first step be? What does it look like to start doing those? And then what is, I think you've talked a little bit about it, but maybe speak a little bit more to not just the advantage, but I think the necessity of being able to connect with community partners in a really meaningful way within the process. I'll let you two flip a coin to decide who responds first.
I'll go first, and then Jeff can make it sound better. I would say number one, invite people to guest speak in your building or in your classroom, because then they see what you're trying to do. But it invites people to be part of it. And most industries, this is kind of real for everybody. Kids tend to stay where they grow up, right? They want to stay in their local communities. And so feed your community, right? There have been businesses and industry in your community that needs workers. Everybody needs workers. So then you're going to provide that pipeline for them. And as soon as they start to see that, they're going to want to do what you're doing, because they see that, hey, we can start young, we can build these kids, we can help them to have those skill set and then come and work for us, right? So invite them into your building and then ask if you can bring kids to them. Because once a kid sees it, we say that all the time, like, kids don't know what they don't know, right? They don't know that there's these really cool businesses next door, or, Joe's dad knows how to do this, and that's something that's really cool. So start to like use what you already have, and you have that right there. So just don't think that you're like, I have to go out and find 25 different partners. No, you can find 2 partners and just get started. And then sometimes you're gonna have projects that are not necessarily for community partners. You can do event planning in your building. Your kids could just do, our very first event ever was a harvest festival here at the school. And now that's grown into huge different things. And we have 10 different events now. So just start small. And I always think about it, it's like, if you're gonna plant your garden, you don't tear up everything at once, right? You're gonna do it one row at a time. So just choose one thing and start on it. And even if it's okay, I'm going to have 4 guest speakers this year, and then next year I'm going to start a project, or I'm going to do this, just start on one little thing, and it will happen. It will. People want to be involved in education. They do. They don't know how to either. So if you can provide them
The opportunity, that's the next word, to participate, then they want to, because the success of the community is the success of their kids, the success of their neighbors, it's the success of everybody that they're involved with. Is probably the
opportunity
direction.
to be in your building, to start to and work on those connections, it will happen.
This
I'm so
is
sorry.
amazing. This is the perfect team up. Jeff, why don't you continue with some of your thoughts on how you've connected and advice you would give to people on connecting with community partners?
Well, yeah, and I guess I need to know, is this because I'm very CTE centric right now. The school that we've been at is CTE. Are the people who are participating in this webinar, is it also primarily CTE, or do we have like history teachers and math teachers and like the whole gamut?
We'll see if what shows up in the chat, but I'm pretty confident in saying that we have both. I know a little bit about some of the schools that some of the people at the beginning said they represent, and I think we
Okay.
have a little bit of both. That's what
But
we typically get on here.
and that's great, because I want to make sure that I'm addressing the entire audience and not just like isolating out on some of that, because like I said, when I was a core subject teacher, I was having students do projects too, and really a lot of them were for the school. And so even though I wasn't expanding beyond the walls of the school, I was expanding beyond the walls of the classroom to have them interact with another teacher, another program. My very first drone class, they could fly over and do a map out of where the driver's ed like parking lot driving course was, so that they could stitch a couple photos together and figure out how to clean up the images a little bit and then provide it to a client, type of thing. But also, like for science, we incorporated some of the history of science that they had to know, but also with an English teacher, so that they could write a paper and have it just apply to more than just what they were doing. So anytime you're just reaching beyond the walls of your classroom, it adds relevance, because it adds a different perspective to what the students are doing. But in terms of resources that your school or maybe your district or your state has, is the work-based learning is a huge element of what we're doing. And work-based learning doesn't have to be an internship. Work-based learning, by definition, is any educational experience that helps prepare them to enter the workforce. And if that's becoming more familiar with the jobs that are in the area, like just reaching out and having somebody, zoom in and do a quick demonstration about what they do in their workplace and what it's like and the types of industry and things that they do, and why they would be interested in students from your school, then that's fantastic. Or if they can physically come, or if your students can go to them, like any of those types of experiences are fantastic for students. And I can't tell you how many times I would tell students, this is an important concept. We've got A, B, and C, and there are things that you need to know and that you need to do, and it's part of something that you need to be ready to enter this workforce. And then I would have a guest speaker come in, and they would casually mention something about those same A, B, and C topics. And when I would ask students, well, what did you really get out of that session? We had this company come in, what were your takeaways? And a student raised their hand. Well, I really liked when they pointed out, that we had to do this A, B, and C thing, and I think that's something I'm going to focus on. Well, great, thanks. I've told you 5 times, but somebody else comes in the classroom and says the same thing that I've been telling them, and now it sticks. It has a different weight sometimes, and sometimes that's just all a student needs, is to hear it from one more person.
And not to try to get a magician to share their secrets, but I am curious, Jeff, would you coordinate some of those talking points beforehand with the presenter, or did you just do your homework enough to be able to probably accurately anticipate that this person would be sharing some of the same points you were enforcing yourself?
Some of it's luck of the draw, but also a big piece of it comes back to having accurate information from the advisory councils. Is that if one company thinks that critical thinking and being able to make decisions and be accountable for those decisions is important, chances are there's another company that also feels the same way, and it lines up.
Nice. I anticipate we may go a couple minutes beyond the hour if you're good with that. There's a couple things I want to get to. Maybe this one covered somewhat quickly, but it is important. But then I want to talk about the scalability of some of the projects that you've actually done. But just maybe briefly mention, because I know you've leveraged grant money a little bit. How have you connected with grants or external funding to kind of expand your possibilities there?
Yeah, so I've written for a handful of different grants. A big help that's been with that, because I've done some grants on my own, but it's always easier to do with somebody, is our education foundation. Our district has an education foundation that's specifically, that's part of their tasking, is to help have funding to help support programs, especially when a need can be addressed. And so I have typically used grant money almost exclusively for new equipment, or to fund an experience for students to be able to go to, maybe it was, there was a company in Provo, which doesn't mean anything to most people that are on this webinar, but is almost an hour drive from where we were. And so to be able to get students on a bus to go down to see and tour at a company that does drone development for military contracts and installations, they do counter drone technology. That's using a drone and specific radar to zero in on a rogue drone that's flying somewhere it shouldn't fly, to be able to take it out of the sky, type of stuff. And that's not an experience that students would have been able to have if I hadn't secured some funding for the hour-long bus ride there and back, plus the time for the sub and for meals, and for the students to have that type of experience, if that wasn't something that I found some funding for. But there's a lot of money that's out there if you ask for it, is really, and the worst that's going to happen is that they're going to say no. And so applications are usually fairly simple or fairly standardized, and there's usually somebody in a district that has experience with grant writing that's willing to help out, or gives at least some tips and feedback, so that that money can be secured, and then your students can have a more rich learning experience.
Nice. Let's talk a little bit about projects, and particularly like scalability behind projects, because I've heard you both share some examples, and I love the creativity, like connecting with a mortuary, connecting with the local theme park. For those that don't know, we have like a pretty pretty good theme park in northern Utah, not far from where you all are at, and being able to do like real world projects there. But maybe speak to some of the more specific programs that you've done. You know, you've talked a lot about drone work, Jeff, but I know that even like the idea of drone work has some scalability with like where you may start. Talk a little bit about some of your specific projects that you've enjoyed, that you feel like have been received well, and what like a scalable model for some of those might look like. I'll let you guys choose again what order you respond with.
Well, let me talk, and then if I glitch out, he can jump in.
Perfect.
We have an audio department here, and so we've done podcasts, and we've done podcasts for the kids, but also we have a lot of industry partners that come in and record. That's really easy. You do not have to have a full recording studio. If you have two microphones, you can record on on a cell phone. So that's really easy. We have done video production for lots of different businesses. Again, that's really easy. One of the things that's really cool, there are lots of different video projects out there. We've done the Veterans History Project. So if you're a history teacher, jump on this, have your students record veterans in your community. That's published in the Library of Congress. Super cool. Easy, just look it up, Veterans History Project. And that's a really fun one. Our culinary students cater for local businesses. They also produce their food here and the kids eat it. So that, again, that's real. And then we create websites for lots of local community. There's lots of businesses, there's nonprofits, there's new startups. Those are the people who need your services like they do, because they don't have a lot of money and they don't have a lot of funding. And they're gonna take what you're producing pretty easily. People ask if we charge for the services. No, we don't, but we ask that they become our kids can use their stuff, their names in their portfolios. And then a lot of it has turned into real jobs for a lot of our students because they'll hire the kids after they graduate. So that's good. Some other ones we've done. We also have an incubation space, so we work with the Entrepreneurship Association. They give our students micro grants, and so the kids have to apply for it, but then they can start their own businesses. So we've had kids start ones, everything from, I think we talked about it, was he does salt water, or the pellets into the soft water. In Utah, we have really, really hard water, so if we do that here, it's kind of weird. But that's his business. And then we also, one of the students started like a fragrance line, which was really cool. So it's like a little shipping service. You get different flavors, I guess, but different fragrances, and then you mix your own perfumes, things like that. But we provided that little bit of startup capital for them, and so that's really fun. Lots of just different ideas. If you're like, I can't come up with this, email me. I will come up with 10 ideas for you. But also ask your kids, because a lot of them have the opportunity and those ideas already there to start. One of the other things we did, again, with our audio, we do live music the second Friday of every month here in our building. And so we have bands that come in and play. A lot of those we do like a student band, and so they come and play, and then we have a more semi-professional band, but our kids do the marketing for that. They take the ticketing, so again, they get to see the whole setup. So there's just lots of opportunity for kids to have that real world, but without being too high stakes, right? You're not doing something for Apple, but you're doing something for the local business across the street, and it's really, really beneficial for everybody.
And public entities are great too, because I've had students fly with our local sheriff's department because they needed flight hours for training anyway. And so they ran search and rescue simulations with our students where it just in a park, we sent somebody out in a red cardigan and had my students coordinate mission planning to search out a grid, have appropriate communication, and try and find and report on the location of this person they were trying to help and find. I've had students interact with the local state park at Antelope Island. It's a giant island in the middle of the Great Salt Lake, and there's a really specific bison population that's there that they worked with a biologist at the state park to do some thermal imaging to do some wildlife counts. We also were working over at that same place, just using GPS coordinates to map out the height of the Great Salt Lake to see where the water level was in comparison to the elevation of the island. And so there's a lot of really interesting GIS and survey elements to it, but then also the interactions with the public entity, but then also the reporting for the class, and then preparing some sort of a short video presentation or a slideshow that they could show to the community, because we have parent showcase nights. people come through the school and they say, well, what are students working on? What are my kids working on? What are our constituents working on? We've had legislators come through and things like that, as well as just local business partners to say, hey, what other programs are happening throughout the school? And the students have to be able to share those as well. And so anything from, well, I designed this little 3D printed latch that goes on the drone that accomplishes this very specific task, up through well, I scanned out a 5-acre plot and created a 1/10 scale city plan. These are where the roads would go. This is where the houses would go. This is where the shopping center would go, and everything in between. Those are the types of projects that I've had students do.
That was awesome. And I know you, like, I've even heard you share, Jeff, like, even in a limited resource setting, like, I think you talked about like a paper airplane project at one point. Like, there's some pretty creative approaches that can even be done in very limited resource settings. Well, this has been fantastic. We're about out of time. I've got one more main question, and then I'll give you kind of a follow-up question to that. But I think it's an important question because, and you alluded to it a little bit, Jeff, earlier when you were asking, specifically who are we speaking to? And I think we're speaking to all educators, and not just educators. One of the things we really preach in the WhyTry model, and you've shared it a few times, is this idea of relevance. At the end of the day, every educator, even the specialists, the support staff, are delivering content, right? We either deliver curriculum, or we deliver intervention, or we deliver projects, but at the end of the day, we're delivering content, and we want our students to consume and apply the content. And so, regardless of what the content is, whether I'm a counselor, a social worker, a classroom teacher, an interventionist, I want the student to connect with my content, and it has to be relevant. The relevance is key for them to consume that content. So I think one of the interesting questions that I want to kind of get to the conclusion of at least the discussion today, and I hope we get to discuss further on another one of these, because I think there's a lot more to dig into. But in your opinion, what should traditional classrooms be borrowing or taking from this project-based learning model? Because you all are in a situation where your whole building is committed to this, but not everybody has that luxury. What are some takeaways that even a simple classroom could take from the model and put into application that I think that might improve the experience for the students?
Yeah, so I think that, like, the project is the framework for the learning, and that you just set some goals throughout it that support the learning objectives, and I don't want to say magic hand waving and it all just falls into place, but sometimes that's just kind of how it feels like it happens. Is that as soon as students start to interact with the content, learning is going to happen, and hopefully it's the learning that we want to have happen. But there's one of the scary but also great things about it is that there's so much flexibility to it, is that it's not like rigidly defined as this is exactly what's going to happen and exactly what the student's going to learn through the process. But part of the reason why that's so great, and I'm glad that I was remembered to bring this up, and when you mentioned interventionists, is that I have typically in my classes been given even upwards of like 20% of IEP and 504 type students in my classes. And I don't have to change. I don't have to change the way I'm instructing based on the percentage of those students in my class, because the project itself can accommodate the learning needs of each of those students. They may fill a different role than they otherwise might. And maybe the expectations for the project of what they're doing might have some minor modifications, but it naturally lends themselves to have the projects still meet the learning objectives, and then they just are accomplishing it in a way that meets any accommodation that they have. And so for alternative education, for situations where maybe there's at-risk students, for other types, and somebody mentioning juvenile justice-based programs, like it's, so maybe that informs some of the types of projects, but if, as long as you just have, hey, I have this framework of a student's going to do a project and they're going to accomplish A, B, and C learning outcomes and have this final product at the end, and then just let them drive to the destination and the learning happens. And that's kind of one of the beautiful things about it.
What a great endorsement. Natalie, what thoughts do you have?
She says everything that I said was awesome and she wouldn't change a word.
I I think you may be right. We'll give Natalie about 5 more seconds, 10 more seconds here, see if we unglitch. There you are. You're back, Natalie. Any? Oh, I think we're glitched again. Well, that's all right. Natalie has contributed really nicely. Any closing thoughts, Natalie, on takeaways traditional classrooms could borrow?
Yes, so I love what Jeff said, have that final product kind of that the kids can understand that that's what you've been working towards. But I will always reiterate, bring people into your building, get some guest speakers in there, and it doesn't have to be physically. You can Zoom people in all the time, right? One of the great things we can do, simulate a real world problem. Like if you, even if you can't do it, something real, simulate it. Like let's work on this real problem. And then, yeah, just kind of that mind shift that this is where we're going with education. Let's make it relevant, and that will make a huge difference.
Such a great note to end on. I'm going to put up contact information here. But while I do, I want to give you one last question. And maybe it's too obvious of a one, but I like the question. Right now, we are in a really interesting time in education. And when I go out and I train educators, I think are feeling more beat up, more exhausted, and in many cases more discouraged than I've seen in a while. So let's pass along a message to hope. What is currently giving you hope in education? And I think CTE and PBL gives you a really unique lens to be really hopeful. But let's see what you can put into words. What is giving you hope right now in education? Let's go Natalie first, and then Jeff.
Um, what gives me hope is kids. It always comes back to that, those relationships with students, that they're amazing, and then they're gonna always surprise us. So yeah, but honestly, this shifts to more just industry standard, the profession-based learning, that we're just kind of creating our new future. So yeah, that's it.
Great response. Jeff, what about you?
Um, I I like seeing students interact with the content and just to see that growth. I remember being in high school and not like I was there for the social aspect of it. I wasn't there for anything else. And because I was able to interact competitively in some of my classes, managed to come out of it with just under a 3.0 GPA, and probably could have come out with much worse if I'd had worse friends. But it wasn't until like I had an interest and was wanting to grow and was wanting to engage with the content in college when I started seeing the 3.9s and the 3.97s in some of my programs. And so I see students in my classroom, or saw students in my classroom interact with the content, interact with the other students, but to also recognize that they came in without a certain skill set and then they were leaving with a skill set and they were excited to use it. And if I had had that same opportunity in high school, then my life might be in a completely different place. And I'm just hoping that it's gonna take them somewhere amazing.
I love it. I'll add my own answer to the question. A lot of times my answer is the students, and the students certainly give us hope. I love seeing the hopeful outlook and the confidence of young people that have not become cynics to the world yet, that are enthusiastic to go out and engage. Um, but right now, I think the educators themselves are giving me tremendous hope. There's a lot of bravery. I use the term intentionally behind this profession. People are really bravely showing up and really committed to do a difficult task, which is to educate every kid in this country. And educators are innovative, and they're compassionate, and they're resilient. And hearing about this type of model gives me so much hope, and just reminds me how incredible and how innovative educators are. We're adapting to what's needed right now. We're adapting to what students need, and there's some really exciting things on the horizon, I think, that are going to continue to help prepare these young people to enter the complex adult world, and be ready to face these challenges. And I think, like you said, Jeff, hopefully put these kiddos on a track where they're even better prepared than what we may have been, as we navigate and still try to figure things out. So huge hat tip and shout out to all the educators and great professionals out there that are doing it, the mental health providers that are doing it, that it just keep showing up and providing support for these kiddos. Hey, let's give a huge round of applause and thank you to our panelists. Really appreciate you both brought fantastic content. Natalie, Jeff, you're doing amazing work. I've got contact information up there. Please, if you have any questions, reach out. I wouldn't be surprised if we even have some businesses and business owners that watch this. I'll certainly put it out on LinkedIn, and I would love for businesses to see this and be excited for opportunities to try to connect with their local education institutions, and hopefully continue the discussion. You'll have an open invitation. I'm gonna probably hit you up in the fall, and I would love to have you both back to continue the discussion. But thank you so much. Huge thank you to our attendees that showed up and participated live. Appreciate the comments and the discussion in the chat. Thank you all for what you're doing.